that's why I think it's important for our people never to lose sight of the fact that we're not needed in this profession. I think we're needed today more than we're needed ever before.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. What up, Black and Blue fam? Welcome to the latest edition of the Black and Blue Podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. My name is Dale, and I'm the host. Thank you for checking me and my show out. Let me also ask you to click those like, subscribe, and bell icons right down here on my YouTube channel. It really helps the show out a lot with those algorithms and such. So if you're also listening to me on your favorite podcast platform, please rate the Black and Blue Podcast 5 stars. And finally, make sure you check me out on any one of my social media pages for even more content. You can find me everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, so with that down, let's jump right into it, shall we? So today's guest is the Chief of Police in the beautiful state of Maryland. So Black and Blue fam, let's give a warm welcome to Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you, Daniel?
I'm excellent out here in Southern California.
Yeah, well, I was hoping I could enjoy some of that weather you get out there, but just going to send it this way.
Hey, we've been raining out here for the past month or so. We've been through a drought, but now we're getting it all right now. So
I heard. Understood.
Yeah. What kind of weather you guys experiencing right now?
Actually, not too bad. We're early spring, so generally we're around the 60s. Days can go up and go down, but we're happy to see that spring is moving forward. So we're ready for that. So yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, my daughter's out there going to school, so yep, she tells me about that. We just spoke to her the other day, and she hasn't experienced the real weather out there, the real winter. So
no, we haven't done that to her yet.
All right. So as I mentioned out there in the intro that you were the Chief of Montgomery County, Maryland. Where is that situated for the viewers and listeners?
So for the viewers and listeners, Montgomery County, Maryland borders Washington, D.C. on the northwest side. So the way I try to help people understand a little bit about Montgomery County is if we go back in history a little bit about close to about 21 years now. Remember the D.C. sniper case. This is where that infamous case started from. So we have cities like Rockville, Bethesda, Silver Spring. Again, we border the northwest side of D.C. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of Bethesda. Isn't one of the naval academies or something's in Bethesda, right?
So not the Naval Academy, but we actually have the Bethesda Naval Hospital is here. Okay. So generally where the presidents are brought for medical treatment, and a lot of military personnel are actually brought out here to Bethesda. So, yeah. So a lot of other, like the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institutes of Health are actually here. They have large campuses in the county. So,
right. All you guys, you in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia all encompass what they call the DMV, right?
That is correct. Yep, that is exactly right. There's a lot of coordinating efforts with the District of Columbia, with Chief Conti there, Chief Aziz in Prince George's County, which is our neighbor, both of our neighbors, and again, and then on the right across the river is Fairfax County, and Arlington and Alexandria. So it's a lot happening in this general area. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And are you originally from that area?
No, actually, I grew up in the southern part of Virginia, though I was born in Baltimore. And a lot of my family still lives in Baltimore. But I was raised in Southern Virginia, which is where both of my parents are from. I ended up going to college in Richmond at Virginia Commonwealth University, also known as VCU. And then I ended up coming here, starting my career here about 37 years ago.
All right, 37 years, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, you're a lifer. So you saw that case. We were talking about the DC sniper. You were there during that time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was a sergeant in Bethesda at the time that the DC sniper case that was initiated. It was an interesting time because that whole incident was about 3 weeks. And 2 weeks into it, I got transferred as a supervisor in our narcotics division. So my role changed from being a patrol sergeant to actually being on a part of the surveillance teams in order to try to identify and catch these guys. So it was a very unique time and experience through my career to be a part of that major investigation at that time, which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that obviously made its way all the way out here to California, and that was a crazy case. They made documentaries and TV specials and all that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Refresh my memory. What happened to those two?
So, the elderly, the guy who was not elderly, but he was sort of that father figure, Muhammad. He actually was convicted in Virginia of the murders that they committed in Virginia. And actually, they gave him the death penalty, and they served that. He actually was put to death really not many years after. I want to say it was within about an 8-year period. The young gentleman who was a juvenile at the time is still serving a life sentence, and in fact, I think they're going to be resentencing him in Maryland because of some changes in the legislation. But, for the most part, he is probably going to serve the vast majority of his life in prison. And he's in prison in Virginia now, currently, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. All right. And your department, how large is it?
So our departments, we have about authorized strength of 1,200 plus officers. Again, we are one of the larger police departments in the country. We're a member of what they call Major City Chiefs Association. So we have about 1.1 million people who live in Montgomery County. So it's a pretty large populated area right outside of DC. So it's a pretty large department, but not as large as some of our other friends who may not have as many people to serve, but they've got a lot of other responsibility, like the District of Columbia.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, you do a lot of coordinating and allied efforts with those departments as well. So it's all one big happy family, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, well, you have to do a lot because our borders are really very close knit, and crime with whatever's happening doesn't necessarily have any borders. So you have individuals who are committed these crimes who may come from my jurisdiction going into other jurisdictions and vice versa. So we have to do a lot of communicating with each other as we address a lot of issues that impact our communities collectively.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you're a county police department. Out here in California, we don't have county police departments. They're all county sheriff's departments.
Right, right.
Are there sheriff's departments out there as well?
There are. In fact, in Montgomery County, there is a sheriff's department. In Montgomery County, in the state of Maryland, there are some unique counties that do have their own police departments, such as Prince George's County, which is as I noted, which is our next door neighbor. Baltimore County has their own police department, Howard County, and then the majority of the other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland are maybe led by their sheriff's department as the primary law enforcement agency. So there's a special charter rule that allows that. for certain counties to have their own police departments and have a separate function outside of the sheriff's department.
Gotcha. But again, you are not elected. Is that right?
That's correct. No, I serve at the pleasure of our county executive, i.e., like the mayor of a city, right? So I am an appointed. I'm an appointed chief of police.
Gotcha. And then your 30 plus years of of service there, I'm sure you've seen a lot. What was your impetus, your origin story, as it were, for you getting into this position in the police department, and why'd you pick Montgomery County?
Yeah, unique in both of those questions. First and foremost, my father was a Baltimore City deputy sheriff, and so I was always impressed by my dad. I had some other family that were in the profession and other functionalities. I have a cousin who's a Maryland State Trooper. My uncle was a prison administrator, actually a prison guard who rose through the ranks in his position. So I always had that interest. And ironically, I went to college, and when I went to college, I majored in business and actually personnel management, human resources management. That later I would come to find that has proven to be a good basis for what I do today. But how I got to Montgomery County was my older brother was actually at Morgan State University, and he graduated from Morgan, and then he came here to Montgomery County and joined the police department. And we were talking about it as I was putting myself through college, and he said to me, "Hey, man, I think this would be a great place for you, it has a lot of excellent benefits, to include helping to pay for your college." And I looked into it, came up and did some ride-alongs, and I was hooked. And so here I am 37 years later, still doing the do in its own right, but in a different role, of course.
Yeah, definitely, of course. But that's you've seen a lot. I mean, over 30 plus years, and that we're talking about the DC shooter and all that as well. And also we're talking about off air that there was a shooting in Nashville today at an elementary school where I think it was 5 people were killed. What's your thoughts on school shootings and just our gun culture in general?
Yeah, going right to like school shootings. I mean, I'll tell you, it's been a much public debate here in Montgomery County. In fact, I've been the chief here now for nearly 4 years, and a couple of years ago, after George Floyd, there was a lot of discussion about we had school resource officers assigned to our schools, and so there was a lot of debate about taking the officers out because they felt like it had this. There were those who felt like there was this negative impact, particularly from a racial component, on the impact of our officers being in the schools. And, there's those that debated, and I think there's a lot of quick judgments and decisions made that might have been not necessarily the right decision. But we had to have some, in Maryland, there's a requirement that you have to have some officers that are actually assigned to your schools. And in regards to that law, you have to have some ability to have officers who are going to monitor your school. So we didn't completely take them out, but we did. It was impactful, the way that we did it. So, and ironically, probably about 6 months after us taking them out, we ended up having a school shooting. We had a student get shot inside of one of our high schools, and that had never happened. And that was, again, I was just stressed, as we talk about sort of my 37-year career, and I worked a lot in the narcotics world during the crack epidemic, and saw a lot of violence at that point in time. But I will honestly say I never saw gun violence to this level of where we are today. Particularly, that was sort of unthought of in our schools, right? And so, first of all, I think it does beg the question that we have to have this serious conversation with our communities about really about safety and protecting our students and our staff, and that law enforcement has a role there. But we shouldn't go in, and I'm totally against us going in a sole enforcement mindset and dealing with discipline issues about schools. That's not the role of law enforcement in our schools, and we should be very, very careful about that. And I think if you set clear goals, rules of engagement with your school, with your school boards and your school systems, then you develop a better process and you give these guidelines to your officers so you know what they can get engaged in and what they shouldn't get engaged in. Because a lot of times I think there are people who think that teachers sometimes just want to call the police to come in and handle, an unruly student, that they technically should be handling themselves, or the school has a better way of handling that. So again, I'm totally for officers' roles in school that I think that help to deter crime, that can also be very preventative in its own right, and to allow officers to develop relationships in those schools with young people. And we've had a lot of success in years past. We've tried to express that in many ways of preventing some crimes from even happening because students came to the school resource officer and provided the information in advance, and it did really prevent any further tragedy. So for me, gun violence is real in school. I mean, there's the evidence that, as we continue to unfortunately hear about these sad cases like in Nashville today, this is real stuff. It can happen anywhere. And again, that's a private school that it happened at, that has a religious background to it and support. So, again, it doesn't matter. I think we all have to put these safety measures in place. And where we are in gun violence today, I tell you, Dale, it's very disheartening as a chief when I see the amount of illegal guns on our streets. And not only that, but I'm seeing too many young men of color, primarily, who are getting their hands on these illegal weapons and utilizing them in a way that never really was utilized before. And so that disturbs me because it says that, that now, particularly people will try to, and it's not just young people because we see this in adults as well, where people are trying to utilize guns as the way of resolving disputes. Not that violence should ever be the answer, but now you're starting to see these guns roll out on the smallest of disputes that especially with young people, you see where there's disrespect over social media. There's just beefing that's going on. As not that in all of our lifetime we didn't experience some of that as we were young and coming up through in our teenage years, and as we grew into adulthood, that we all have gone through some of that. But to see the level of it now, it really is disturbing in my mind. And I think we as a society, we in our communities have to really kind of dig deep and figure out how can we get to these folks to say there's a better way, right? And we've got to figure out what is the better way.
Yep. Because absolutely, when you and I were coming up, if you had beef with somebody, you fought it out.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, because, you can go back to West Side Story, and even before that, where some people would bring knives, but for the most part, it'll be,
right.
Hands. And you might get your butt kicked, but you live through it. And then
That's
you
right.
live to see another day. But today, I mean, and they don't even care because I would always be of the fact that, if you need to bring a gun, then, anybody can shoot a gun. My three-year-old little kid can shoot a gun, but, so it's just a different time.
Yes, it is. And I mean, we all have to adapt to the time change, right? And it requires us to do something a lot deeper than maybe our parents had to do. And I mean, I remember elders in the community who could have that conversation with folks even when there were disputes and however those disputes were handled. So we all gotta play a role in this in some way, form, or fashion. So no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Takes a village.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Yes, it
does.
does. All right. And on the subject of taking a village and children and all that, what's the family life for you?
Well, I'm blessed. I have three beautiful children. All my children are adults now. All of them are college graduates, and it is a blessing that my wife and I really are very proud of them, and they do a variety of different jobs. Two of them were actually teachers. One of them has actually moved out of the teaching profession. I think only for a temporary time. He may beg to differ, but my kids are great. They live in Montgomery County in the D.C. area. So again, we're very proud of them and what they've done through the years.
Yeah, but none of them followed in Dad's footsteps, huh?
No, it was funny. I think I had a shot of one of the three, but she went into what I call public service. I think teaching is a public service as much as law enforcement. And she's doing very well. I'm proud of her. And again, I was stating my son also was a teacher for about 8 years here in the county. And I think he's just taking a little bit of a break, testing some other professions out. He actually was a film major at Towson University outside of Baltimore. So I would not be surprised if one day he turns into some sort of filmmaker as life goes on. So yeah, but I'm very proud of them. Again, knowing that they've seen a lot with my career. They've seen a lot of it firsthand. Some, and they've supported me all throughout the years.
Yeah. And, because they probably did see a lot, it might have been a little bit different because I'm sure throughout their lifetime and their lifetimes, Dad missed a lot of special events, right?
That is so true. Yeah, that is so true, Dale. And my kids, in fact, not only were they great students, but my wife and I were always of the belief that our kids needed to always be engaged in some positive activities. And of course, all three of them were very active in a variety of different events, but mostly sports. And so one thing I committed to, even though, I worked in this great profession, but understanding that, we didn't have that 9-to-5 job that was always at my footsteps. But I always made the commitment that no matter what position I was in, I would always support them in their athletic and with my wife, who was phenomenal in her own right, because she took on a tremendous load that even when I was working those crazy hours. But again, I was involved in coaching, all three of them at a variety of levels, all the way through their high school years. Two of my kids, my two daughters, went on to play college sports. One played basketball and one played softball. So with that gave me the really, just the comfort to know that my involvement, even though, was could be limited at times, but they saw that. Yeah, you're right. They saw it firsthand. And I also sort of, believe that, my wife and I did our very best to try to give them the ability and make it known to them that they would make the decisions of what they would want to do in their lives, and not for us to be sort of a demanding. And if they chose to go into law enforcement, I would have supported them 100%. But again, they chose different avenues, and I think they chose the right ones based upon their personalities and who they are. And like I said, and that just makes me very proud of them.
Yeah. Yep. But now we're having some some experiences now in law enforcement, trying to get people into this profession. We've noticed that a lot of young people no longer want to be police officers, or for a variety of reasons. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, and it's that I think that's the I think we're at a turning point. I've been very disappointed over the past couple of years, but I understand when you think about what we see on social media, what we hear in the news, the things that are going on in our society, I think we're already challenged even before that, because I think we've created an environment that we push people to do things differently, right? And there are different jobs that are available today that they weren't available so many years ago. I mean, I remember like in law enforcement when I came in, you think about all of the sort of the strict, when I say strict, the rules that you had, that, you know, your mustache couldn't be a certain length. You couldn't have a beard. You couldn't have tattoos, right? And look at where we are today. Now, you know, we're hiring people with tattoos. We're allowing, officers to wear beards. It's just a different day. And I think we in law enforcement have had to change from this total paramilitary style that still, I think, some departments haven't gotten to yet. But I think we have to adapt and really understand that we're recruiting a different type of individual now. And we need to be open to that, still keeping our standards high, right? I think you can, but the question is, sometimes you have to ask, does having a tattoo that's not offensive on somebody's body, is that going to prevent that individual from doing the job, right?
Right.
And that's the real question that you have to ask about a lot of these things when we've set these rules in place. And I think by us loosening that up, we've now opened the door wider of more inclusiveness. And I think there's still some debate about some other things that are in the sort of the rules of our hiring that may need to be adjusted. I know a lot of chiefs, we're talking about that constantly. And the question is when you make that, how effective is that going to be to really get good people in the door? And I think the other thing that we have to think about in law enforcement, what other jobs, what are some of the creativity that we can do in law enforcement that attracts young people to the types of jobs that we have? You know, we know that patrol, being in uniform and being that first responder is a very important role that every police department has. But there's these other specialties that we also have within this ranks of some of our departments that might be an attraction to young people, or what are some of the benefits? And I think we're really starting to wrap our heads around that and create that window of opportunity. And I think young people start to experiment and say, I think I want to be a part of that. And not so much get caught in sort of the mindset of yesterday of what we think is important. Think about what's coming, in the doors and what people are actually looking for. So I'm optimistically, I'll put it this way. I'm optimistic about tomorrow. I think that there's still, we're still talking to young people that I still think want to do public service. I think even in this era of today, I think there's still people who want to do a job right. It's just that, are we creating an environment that says that we want those officers that are not going to be the ones that we're seeing that's creating a lot of negativity in our profession, right? And we're saying we want great people, we want good people to come in and do the job. And I think that's the message that we have to really kind of put out there to get these folks to be there to join us and to carry the torch, because my days are dwindling. But I know there's a lot of people who bring a lot of different ideas, and policing undoubtedly looks quite different today than it did when I started 37 years ago.
Yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure. Agencies, I think, got to be flexible nowadays for what they offer. People trying to come into the profession, take scheduling for one thing. I know at least my department, we just recently went to seniority based bidding where before we were just here's your schedule, here's what you work, and it's funny is because it's seniority based is where the most senior guys get to pick, and then it goes down the line, right. And then usually when it gets down to the lower people, they're usually stuck with nights and weekends. Funny thing is that when it got down to the junior officers on the schedule to pick, they wanted those weekend nights, because
Right.
those are the times where it's more action.
That's right. That's
So
exactly right.
they actually wanted that. So
Right.
it's funny. At least there was that flexibility there. They could have picked, days, weekend,
Mm-hmm.
weekdays, but they didn't want that. So, having
Right.
that flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And again, sometimes we misread them, right? I think we think they may want something, but they may not want that something, right?
Right.
And we all develop. I remember, I would have
thought they wanted to have the weekends off so they can go party, but
that's right. Yeah. And you'll be surprised sometimes what they come back and tell you.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about you're a young person and you're starting a new family, right? That's another X factor that we don't put into play. And I remember starting when we was just starting our family. There were these things that I needed, working midnight shift. Well, everybody doesn't want to like to work the midnight shift, right? But that worked out perfect for me for what we needed to do with childcare issues and getting the kids off to school and the like. So, you never know. I think sometimes we read too much into that, but options are. But what you just stated, I think is important, Dale, is we got to create some not be so stringent, but to provide some leeway to all of our officers to make it attractive.
Absolutely. And now you're in positions to implement those sort of changes as a chief of police. What was kind of your rise through that rank structure of your department? Did you have mentors that kind of helped you along the way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've mentors. I will tell you literally when I first started. For example, when I first started in Montgomery County hired its first black officer in 1968. So if we put that into context, I mean that's clearly in my life during my lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when I came on in 1985 that there were about at the time I came on, there were 75 black officers out of about 800 total officers. So clearly a white male dominated profession to the nth degree. And there were a lot of doors that needed to be knocked down at the time even when I came on in the mid 80s. And we were still knocking doors down. And there were these, what I call sort of an original crew of black officers that were my mentors that helped guide me in my early years. And then I became involved in some black law enforcement organizations, such as the National Black Police Association. And when I got involved in that, then I began to really broaden my horizons, because then I started meeting people all across the country who were courageous warriors. I would classify them as men and women who were, again, knocking doors down across the country, and to just observe their courage, to listen to them, and to gain some of that knowledge helped me as I progressed through the ranks here in Montgomery County, only to know that, later on I would be, sort of on the flip side of this. And now I'm out there mentoring people along the way over the course of my career. So it's giving back to what was given to me. I think that's important for us because, even as me now as having risen to the rank of chief, which I would have never imagined, not to say that I never thought I could be a chief of police. I just never thought that the doors would open for me here in Montgomery County, because all of the stars have to align. And my road wasn't easy. In fact, I thought that I would end up I made assistant chief, and I thought I would probably, have to go apply somewhere else to be a chief somewhere, because we have such great leaders that have come through this police department. But the way, again, the stars align, politics plays itself out. And the opportunity was there before me, before I knew it. God opened the door for me. So, and I was there for it. But again, I think it's important for me to never forget and to make sure that I'm mentoring others and guiding them as much as I can to help them with their careers. And I'm blessed to have been able to do that and still do that. So.
Nice. And you mentioned when you first came on, there were only about 75 black officers. What's the number like today?
Yeah, so we're about around 150 now, which again, it's 2 times the number about where we were when I first came on. It's not where we really want to be. It's not enough, but it's better. And we're more diverse on the police department today. There are more women. There are more other racial. And Montgomery County is a very diverse county. So a lot of different ethnic groups and racial groups that are part of our county. And that's a part of our police department as well, and that's important. But again, I'd love to be able to see more African Americans in the role, either in my department or across the country. I mean, I think it's important for us to be represented because I think we have something to give. People who care about communities, people who work hard, and we care so much. And I've always stated this: it's important that we have people that are representing our communities because they know our communities well, and they know how to represent them, and they know what needs to be stated. And there are times we've had to intervene and bring in officers of color who knew the community well enough to be able to mediate problems and avoid bad situations from happening. That's that's just one of the values that it brings, and it just brings a different perspective. So that's why I think it's important for our people never to lose sight of the fact that we're not needed in this profession. I think we're needed today more than we're needed ever before. And we've been needed for a long time, but I think now the way things are going in our society, we are truly needed. And we're needed at every level. And that's why I think it's important for people in the profession, who sometimes sit back and say, I don't want to be a supervisor. I don't want to be in executive ranks. And I can understand that. I mean, not that everybody is built for this or needs to do that. I think there's leaders in every phase of rank, that we have leaders in every form. But I think we also need to understand that the decisions that are made in the boardroom, that I call it, if you don't have a seat at the table, your voice is not necessarily always heard. Yeah. And having a seat at the table gives you an opportunity. So it's something to think about from that perspective, is to be able to be in a place that you can have that seat at the table and express your view. And again, when those who have earned that respect and earned that seat at the table, that view at least is put on the table, whether or not it's brought into a policy or not. But a lot of times I've been able to shape policy, and clearly now as a chief, I really have that. I have a power unlike before, to be able to move things that I think it's important for the good of everybody, not just for one particular group or another, but it makes sure that people of color are not dismissed, no matter whichever way you're addressing any issues that you have before you.
Yep. And I know you just kind of mentioned probably your most rewarding part is being a chief, is being able to shape policy and implement policy for the good of everybody. But on the flip side of that, what's one of your most challenging parts of being a chief?
Whoa. Well, I think the most challenging part is probably the politics of it all. And as a chief that's not elected, I work at the pleasure of the county executive. There are times that sometimes I want to say something, but I have to be very cautious about what I say or how I say it, if I can say it at all. And that's the danger zone a little bit about and just the role of a chief. You just have to be a little bit politically savvy to try to navigate those waters. And sometimes I will tell you, I've had to learn how to utilize other people to maybe express my feeling in order to be able to get the message across. And, sometimes you win. I mean, if you think about it, if the right people are going to the politicians and addressing that, sometimes you'll be surprised that you actually do win the battle. May not win you just gotta keep plugging. So from that perspective, I think it can be frustrating, from the political wins, but it's all part about what you kind of signed up for, right? I mean, nobody can say policing is not political, because it is. I used to tell my brother, who was on the department, he was a PAL officer. I'll never forget. He ran the police athletic league that we had at the time. And he went on and said, man, I don't want to get involved in the politics. I'm like, you're involved in the politics because you're doing a program that, that politicians have got a hand in. They control it, and you're navigating it, but you're showing them what you can do. The politics always kind of exist in what we do. We just gotta understand what is our role and how can we best, take advantage of the positive pieces of us being in those roles from a political standpoint, right? But it's just the way you kind of view it. I mean, and I can understand why he didn't want to look at it from a political standpoint, because he says that's not who he was. And but he was real good at navigating relationships, so he was better at it than I think he gave himself credit for.
Right. Yeah, I always noticed that, that distinction between, a sheriff who's elected and, particularly out here, who can speak their mind to the commission,
right,
because they are elected just like they are. So he doesn't really answer to them, but they do hold his purse strings, though. His or her purse strings. So.
They're still
so they can affect him that way.
Activity that he doesn't control, right? That's right. Yep. That's right. Yeah,
absolutely.
So he has to be very careful, even doing that, because he doesn't want to make those relationships go in a negative way that doesn't give his department what he needs. So absolutely.
All right, Chief. Hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. This is really insightful. Yeah. I appreciate everything there, but hey, you're not done yet. Like I said off air, I'm going to get a little bit more insight on you, and this is how we're going to do that.
Last night I saw a superhero. He was black. He said, "This is for the street. Black Lightning's back."
All right, so this is what I call my Black Lightning round. Let me pull up the questions here for you. I'm just gonna fire some questions for you, and then hopefully you can tell me a little bit more about yourself here. So here we go. Here's your first one here. So you were in the DMV in the Maryland area. So Ravens or Commanders?
Ravens.
Ravens all the way. Well, you were born in Baltimore, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
No doubt. All right. What was your favorite assignment throughout your career?
Working in narcotics. Yep, I was an undercover officer in narcotics during the crack heyday. So that was my favorite assignment.
Okay, all right. Who's on your playlist of artists that you listen to?
Well, that's a good one. I've got a wide variety because I'm a R&B jazz. So let's see. You could say Luther Vandross. You could say Anita Baker. You could say Mint Condition. You could say Earth, Wind and Fire.
Pretty Brown Eyes. Pretty Brown Eyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, sir. Best police vehicle you ever drove?
Best police vehicle I ever drove. This will kick you. Actually, we seized a Hummer. And then one of my assignments when I worked in narcotics, I was actually the drug enforcement commander. So the funny part was we seized the Hummer. I was given the Hummer to drive. So I was like, what the heck? The boss told me to drive it. So I'm going to drive it, even though the chief didn't want me to drive it because it was burning up so much gas. But that was my best vehicle.
They get like 8 miles per gallon or something like that.
Yeah, basically, right? That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a video of a cooking show with you on it. So probably a couple years ago. So what's your go-to dish to prepare?
So that was interesting because that was a baking show, and I'm not a baker.
Okay.
So I can't proclaim to be the baker. But my favorite go-to dish, my kids will laugh at me, but I love to cook fried chicken and rice-a-roni. And my kids used to love that coming up. So whenever they come over, sometimes they'll force me to make that. Just for old time's sake. Yeah, that was the rush dish when you were young.
Yeah, love me some rice brownie. You ever had an on-duty injury?
I have not had an on-duty injury, knock on wood. Yeah.
Yes, good for you.
The only time I've ever been injured on a job, or technically it was sort of quasi, I would say, was I was working out at the academy playing basketball, and I ended up spraining my ankle. And I was out of work for a few months as a result of that with a bad ankle sprain. But beyond that, I've been fortunate. I've been blessed. I've not been injured on the job.
Good for you. Good for you. Name a person, dead or alive, that you would like to meet if you could.
I think the number one person always comes to my mind was Martin Luther King, Dr. King, because he was always my idol. I looked up to him ever since I was probably like around in the 5th or 6th grade. So yeah, he's always the number one person that comes to my mind.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Biggest technological advancement you've seen during your career in policing?
Ooh, that's heavy. I would probably say, maybe sounds basic, but it's probably computers in police cars. I would have never dreamed that in 1985, 1986. I could never have even imagined what that looked like. But I would probably say that's probably one of the biggest technological advances to be able to, to see how far that's come with computer-aided dispatch and the like. It's just, I think that's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, you used to do this back when I had to take a call,
you
right?
better believe. I had plenty of pens and paper, my friend. Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. So who plays Chief Marcus Jones in the movie of your life?
Whoa. That's a good one. I'd have to think about that one. I don't know who would play me. I have no idea.
I got some Lou Gossett vibes from you.
Okay.
Although he's probably older than you now. So
yeah, Lou's older than I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably not. I'm feeling the officer and the gentleman. That's what I'm getting.
Okay, I got it. Okay, understood. I like that.
Yeah. What city outside of the United States would you have a chance, if they called you to be their chief?
What city outside of the United States?
Yeah, if they called and said, Marcus Jones, we want you to be our chief.
Come down and be our chief. Oh man, it would have to, wherever it is, it has to be in the Caribbean. Okay. So I would love to be the chief maybe in Jamaica or one of the Caribbean islands. That would be ideal for me.
There you go. And lastly, what guilty pleasure do you have, whether it be food, TV show, anything?
Guilty pleasure, I would probably say, let's see. I'm like a TV show. There's lots of things that I like to watch. I will say, like, I watch First 48 is one of my favorite TV series. I don't know. I just get sort of kind of like engaged in investigative shows because that's where I'm at naturally. So sometimes my wife laughs at me. She's like, I can't believe you watch this stuff. But then she's sitting there right there with me watching every step of the way. So, yeah, but it's pretty cool. I love those types of shows from that perspective. So,
okay. Just to see how other agencies handle different things.
Yeah, right? To see how they handle their investigators, how they do go about investigations. I always find, different parts of the country has their uniqueness, right, about policing. And it goes to the whole thing about how policing, though similar, is different. When you have 18,000 police departments in the country, and this is what I try to explain to the public all the time, is that policing is local. So it's all about the relationships you build, where you are, but it's also how you go about doing things and the resources that you have available to you as well is very unique in its own right. So, yeah, I think that to me, it's I find that to be quite interesting, particularly when I get to talk to a lot of other police chiefs around the country, and we have different ways of doing things. But again, the goal and the mission is the same. It's very, very unique.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Chief Jones. Hey, again, I appreciate you coming on. Hey, before I get you out of here, how about some words of wisdom for the audience?
I will just say the words of wisdom. I will say is, it is very important that, again, as I noted earlier about the African American officers who and recruiting is to go out, and we are our best recruiters. And to help our own communities, we've got to go out and sell this to young people and our people who are just very much either interested in a career, or even if you don't think that they think they're interested, to talk to them about these careers, because sometimes people getting an idea about what this might be about may be a little bit different than what your experiences, and you sharing that with them can maybe open up a door for somebody. So don't be afraid to take that challenge. And again, we need you to be the recruiters of tomorrow to bring our people in today. So keep that in the back of your minds.
Will do. All right, Chief Jones. Again, I appreciate you coming on, and hey, you have fun and be safe out there in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Dale, thank you so very much. Please stay safe, and everybody else stay safe. And thank you so very much for having me. I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do. Take care.
Okay, take care. We'll see you there soon.
You got it. Hey, another outstanding interview in the books. I want to thank Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and chop it up with me. I really appreciate that. And if you guys out there appreciated this episode, go on ahead and let me know by leaving a comment in the section below. And don't forget to click those like, subscribe, and share buttons for this episode too. I'll be back real soon with another outstanding interview just like this one. But till then, you already know. Stay black in blue. I'll holla at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.